Welcome to Be Brilliant with Jing Lang, the podcast dedicated to those seeking to excel in every aspect of their lives. Through conversations with her guests, Jing will tease out personal stories, helpful tips, and proven strategies to help you elevate your life and reach your highest potential. Get ready to dive in and discover what it means to be truly brilliant. And now, here's your host, Jing Lang.
Hi, we're joined today by Charles Cowling. Charles is the current president of the International Actuarial Association. He was trained as a pension actuary and started working in 1984. He was most recently the chief actuary at Mercer. Charles was born in Manchester, United Kingdom, and he is a fellow of the Institute of Actuaries, a chartered mathematician, and a chartered scientist. Charles is married with 4 children, and he is freshly ordained as a priest in the Church of England. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Charles. How are you?
Jing, great to see you. Great to be with you today. And thanks for having me on this podcast today. I'm delighted to be with you and looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. And where exactly are you today, Charles?
So I'm currently working from home, which is in Bolton near Manchester in the UK.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, you are an actuary. I am an actuary, but not all of our audience is familiar with the profession. Can you tell people what an actuary is?
Well, I'll do my best, but even my family sometimes say, "What is it that you do? I don't understand." But actuaries are experts in finance, in statistics, in modelling and data and risk. And we use those skills of mathematics and statistics and finance to help particularly insurance companies manage risk, but not just insurance companies, many other entities as well. I work for pension schemes, and pension funds need to be able to manage the risks that they run in delivering pensions to people over 30, 40, 50 years into the future. So actuaries are there to help manage those risks, to understand them, to model them, and explain to others how best to manage the risks that are being faced.
Wow, thank you for that. Make me feel more feel good about our profession too. I forgot from time to time how long-tailed that we have to predict into the future. So that's a big responsibility.
It is.
So congratulations on your impending retirement. I know you were just you're the chief actuary for Mercer, and you're retiring end of this year.
Yes, that's my plan, to retire at the end of this year. I will have completed 40 years in the profession. And
don't age yourself.
And I feel that's quite long enough for anybody. And it's time to hand over to the younger generation, including my son, who's a qualified actuary, which is great. And yes, I should be...
2 actuaries in the family. Yes. Wow.
And I'm heading off in a very different direction, having, as you mentioned before, just been ordained in the church. So I'll continue volunteering as an actuary for a little while, but I'm not intending to do any paid employment as an actuary. My focus will be on supporting the church.
Well, I definitely want to circle back on your church work later in our podcast. But for people who are interested or aspire to become a chief actuary for a pension fund, what did your typical day look like? So
this year is not typical because as president of the IAA, I've had to hand over a lot of my work to others. But typically, I suspect that my time split into 2 or 3 big parts. So I've always maintained about a half of my time working on clients, and that's what I've always loved doing. So my clients are pension funds. So I'm advising them on their financing. I'm advising them on detailed aspects of changing regulations. We have to do regular actuarial valuations, and there's always a process that needs to be followed that takes many, many months of establishing how you're going to do the modelling and setting assumptions, engaging with the client, with the trustees on how they want to approach the task, then carrying out all the modelling and the calculations, presenting the results, and then you're looking at how do you, having seen what the results are, how do you then finance and plan the financial funding of the scheme, but also how that links in with the amount of risk that you're taking, the investment strategy, what sort of position the employer is in. All of these are factors in trying to understand what's the optimal strategy for funding and investing the assets of the pension plan. Always conscious to look after members' interests. So you're always wanting to do the best thing by members. So that's what a lot of my client work looks like. There'll always be small tasks to do when members join and leave plans, or when a company is involved in an acquisition of another company, for example. Pensions are always an important part of remuneration strategy. So you're involved in helping your client manage a lot of different aspects of their pension arrangement, whilst also keeping a very close eye on our regulator, who is always very interested in ensuring the things are being run properly, and there are lots of rules and regulations and paperwork to sort out and complete and so on. So there's lots of day-to-day management that I get involved in. So that was probably about half of my time and my work.
Oh, wow.
Then perhaps a third of my time was around working within Mercer on professionalism, on risk, on ensuring that the firm is running optimally, on helping develop new ideas, intellectual capital. What is it that we need to take to clients as things change? So whether it was the pandemic that required us to develop tools and take ideas and solutions to clients, or whether it's the latest trend in investments and markets and hedging of assets and liabilities, or transition of pension assets and liabilities to an insurance contract. A lot of pension plans these days are looking to secure their benefits with an insurance company and ensure that they can deliver on their promises. So a lot of what I do is helping to set standards. This is what our actuaries should be doing. This is how these are the solutions. These are the training tools that we should be providing, both internally and externally, helping to run webinars, helping to deal with difficult problems that arise. There are always challenging issues that people will come up with that need someone senior to help them manage their way through a difficult situation. And then there's other sort of corporate risk management. It's important for us as a business that we manage the risks within our business. And as chief actuary, there's an important role to play in understanding what are the things that can go wrong and how we as a business mitigate those risks and manage against them. And that might be around IT problems, regulatory problems. It might be the possibility that mistakes could be made, and how do you ensure a proper peer review process and checking and so on. So there's a lot to do in terms of ensuring our business is properly and professionally managed. And when things do happen, what do we learn from them? What went wrong in the situation? What can we make sure that we improve our processes, our procedures, our training, and so on for the future?
So not a dull moment.
Not a dull moment. And that's been one of the joys of being an actuary. I mean, I've had a very hugely varied career. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and there's been a huge amount of variety. And then the other part of my work has involved my volunteering,
Yes.
both in the UK and internationally.
Well, let's talk about that. How long ago? I understand you're an extremely active volunteer with both the Institute of Institute of Actuaries.
The Institute of Faculty of
Yes,
Actuaries in the UK,
the
yes.
FOA in the UK, as well as the IAA. So for the audience don't know, the two of us, we met actually just recently, April, at Singapore, which is the IAA-sponsored Artificial Intelligence Summit. So before I get to the AI section, tell us more about the IAA. I have been volunteering for both the SOA and the CIA for 10 years, but that was the first opportunity I get to work with IAA. How did IAA become our profession's best kept secret?
And it was great. It was great that you were able to join us in Singapore. One of the great joys of Singapore, and we will come back to AI a little bit later, but the subject of AI brought us a whole group of additional volunteers who previously not touched the IAA. So the IAA is, and I should say there's another organisation which we probably won't have time to touch on, but I also volunteer for the Actuarial Association of Europe, which is the European equivalent of the IAA. But that has a particular role in engaging with European lawmakers. Now the IAA has that as well globally, but the IAA exists to focus on three main areas. Firstly, it's important to recognise that the IAA is an association of associations. So the SOA is a member, the CIA is a member, the CAS is a member, the IFOA is a member. All of these associations are members of the IAA. Now, the IAA started well over 100 years ago. It started originally as individuals around the world wanted to get together and share ideas. And that's what they did. They shared ideas. They went to a conference that was arranged and they pooled their thinking and shared the latest development in thinking around, back then it was mortality and it was mainly around life insurance. And that's how the IAA existed for many, many years, and it centered around an international congress that was held every 3 or 4 years. But more recently, about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the different associations around the world realized that they needed to be able to come together and do things that they weren't able to do as individual associations. So they changed the nature of the IAA, so it became an association of associations with three main objectives. And those main objectives were firstly to engage with other supranational organizations. So the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, the International Organization of Pension Supervisors, the United Nations, the OECD, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund. All of these organizations, if they want to talk to actuaries, they haven't got
the IAA.
They can't talk to individual countries. They need to talk to a group of actuaries. So the IAA is the place that, for example, we can engage with the United Nations on climate change. If the United Nations...
I had no idea. That's amazing. Okay.
If they want to come to actuaries and say, what can you do to help us in climate change? They have to come to the IAA because there are too many other organizations out there. So that's a really important role that the IAA plays. And then the other two roles are are firstly around looking after the future of the profession. So that means sharing best practice on professionalism and ethics, sharing best practice on education and how we develop the actuaries of the future, and then helping those associations around the world who are still developing develop stronger standards, develop education, develop ways of ensuring that their actuaries meet the standards that's expected of a global actuarial professional body.
And how many are there, Charles?
How many associations are actuaries?
Both?
Okay, so there's about the 71 or so full member associations and a number more of associates, probably representing more like 130 countries, because many there are actuaries in a large number of countries around the world, and barring Africa, pretty much every other continent and some of South America, there are actuaries working in most countries. And Africa and South America too, the actuarial profession is growing and spreading. But the IAA is there to help that. So the IAA is there to help the developing nations in terms of, developing actuarial expertise.
And those are the associate members, the ones that need a bit more best practice.
So there's probably about 20 or 30 associate members as well. Okay. As the 70, 75 full member associations. Okay. And altogether representing something like 75,000 actuaries around the world.
That's a lot. That's everyone, right?
Yeah.
Those are nearly everybody. Nearly every actuary.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
And even, an association like the IFOA that's been around for hundreds of years, or nearly 200 years, we still learn from other associations around the world. It's really important that we share that. And that comes on to the third area of expertise, which is sharing knowledge and experience of actuarial work. Mm-hmm. So one of the great things about the IAA is that, and this is how I discovered, this is how I first was involved, was working in pensions, is that you see how pensions are done around the world, and it's different. And so you learn from each other, but you also learn how actuaries are getting involved in completely different areas. So the IFOA's been learning from South Africa about banking and how we can help and encourage more actuaries into banking. If you go to Australia, for a number of historic reasons, Australia have got a lot of actuaries working in data science. So if you want to see actuaries working in industry in other areas, you can go to somewhere like Australia and see them working in organisations that don't really operate in the same way in the UK and elsewhere. So the IAA gives you that opportunity to share expertise, to share knowledge, to share ethics and professionalism and education, and to interact with other big global organisations, as I say, like the UN and the OECD and so on.
All right, let's talk about artificial intelligence for a second. That's the basis how we met. Charles, I love that in the presentation you had a line saying actuaries with AI will replace actuaries without AI. Can you tell us more about that, your philosophy, your belief?
So I don't think we've fully appreciated how much AI is going to change our lives. AI is going to change pretty much everything. And it's going to fundamentally change the work of actuaries. And we're going to have to adapt. But I'm a real optimist here. I think that it's going to give us a lot of new tools, a lot of opportunities to do things that we haven't been able to do to date, and to take the level of problem solving onto another level. But if we're not careful and alert to all of this change, potentially we could be replaced. Now, I don't think that will happen, but I do think that the actuary of the future, if you like, the AI-enhanced actuary, will be fully using AI tools. And if actuaries aren't prepared to embrace the new technology, the new tools that become available, they'll simply be replaced by those actuaries who are prepared to use new AI tools to deliver much better outcomes for clients.
How many, well, Charles, we're technical professionals as training, right? Years of exams.
Yeah.
How important would you say it is for someone who wants to leverage AI to go do a master's in computer science or to pursue some degrees? Like, do you think that's a prerequisite? Or can we just leverage how to use it? Like electricity, you can turn on the light without knowing how that works. What's your thought on that?
So that's a really important question. I'm not sure I know the answer because I think the whole idea of what are the real skills that are going to be needed is still unclear. My son, who is an actuary, is increasingly using AI to write code. And if AI is going to write our code for us, then will we need to be trained in code writing? Maybe not. Maybe the skills that we need to develop are the prompts to use AI effectively and efficiently. And so it may well be that it's not the coding skills that you need, but it's the skills of understanding what the tools can do and how to prompt those tools to deliver the solutions that you need. And I think that's a different set of skills, which is going to be very challenging for the future. I learned how to do many of the calculations that I present that have been done by computers in my day-to-day work. Because I did a lot of those calculations by hand as I was being trained, I have a good feel for what the answers should be. I know when somebody produces and presents me a piece of work, whether that looks right or wrong. And I can spot where things are...
Smells funny. Yeah.
Look a bit odd. That's right, smells funny. That smell test is really important. Now, if the actuaries of the future haven't had the same experience of rolling their sleeves up and doing the calculations, how will they develop that innate understanding of what the answer should feel like? And I think that's a challenge for us. So, yeah, I'm very optimistic that our skills of modeling data, statistics and finance and risk will be as important in the future as they have always been. In fact, I think they'll become more important. And I think the tools that AI will give us will allow us to present ever more sophisticated solutions. The challenge for us as actuaries is how do we stay on top of the opportunity and the capabilities that the new tools will deliver. And I'm excited by it, but I do think there are challenges. There are challenges for our education system. There are challenges for how to advise people what to do. I've always encouraged people in my team and people that I know and I work with just to look to stay on top of developments, to look at their CV every year, to build up skills, to try to understand what are the skills that will be more in demand going forwards. But to look beyond 5, 6, 7 years is frankly very challenging, particularly with quantum computing coming down the road. There's going to be so much more change. But if you stay on top of the tools that are available, make sure you understand the latest AI opportunities, then I believe you will become and remain valuable as an actuary or whatever it is you choose to do in your career.
And I do think the IAA is getting all the organizations trying to do what you're saying, right? That's the genesis of the artificial intelligence task force. You mentioned, education, governance, the changing role of actuaries, innovation. I think there's another one. It's not coming to me right now. But those are specific work streams that people from, I think it was nearly 100 actuaries from different parts of the world came in. And we want to deliver something concrete, right, before the end of the year. But it looked like it will bleed into 2025, given how fast the technology develops. So it's amazing that IAA is playing a leadership role already in getting everyone to think about it methodically. And so it's incredible. I do want to mention one other thing. You mentioned prompting, Charles. I presented at the Canadian Institute of Actuary conference in Quebec City last month, and I did 2 sessions on generative AI. And one of them was includes a demo on prompting. So it was amazing to see how well attended the session were. We had the room was packed with people standing at the back. And in my mind, Charles, and I'm keen to get your reaction to this, I think there's a lot of information that's already available. And as actuaries, communication hasn't been a skill that we specifically train down through the exams. Although I think writing essay questions, essay responses are probably one form of that. But I think there's a lot of teasing out the information we need from this database of information that's already available. So during the demo, we went back and forth on how we can get information out in a way that is usable to us as actuaries. But then what you said about the smell test become important too. How would you know if this is something that you haven't, used your hand and calculator do from the ground up? And then I think maybe that's when the common sense and logic come into place. Our training as actuaries, we should be able to sense something requires a second look or not.
No, I mean, everything you say there makes lots of sense. And, starting from your comments at the end there, our training as actuaries has got to continue to give us the ability to understand whether the outcomes that the models are producing are correct or not. But more than that, and this is where some of the work that we're doing on the professionalism and ethics side of things, we not only need to understand whether the answers that we're seeing are correct, but we've also got to understand whether there are biases in these outcomes, and trying to understand what it is that the models are showing. And it's very difficult when you get vast amounts of data that's coming into your model to understand what AI might be doing to interpret that data and maybe to produce biased answers in ways that you hadn't appreciated. And that leads on to another professional problem, which is how do you as an actuary sign off a model that is more sophisticated than you might potentially understand. And, we're going to have to tackle how we as actuaries professionally use models that get more and more complicated. And that's another big challenge for us. And then you mentioned earlier about communication skills. And I think that's a really important area for all actuaries going forward. If we're going to get our modeling, our solutions done by ever more sophisticated AI tools, the role that the actuary is going to be playing, increasingly, it seems to me, is as the interpreter of what's coming out of these tools, and the interpreter to an advisor to other people who need to make decisions about things, whether it's about risk management or it's about financial markets or whatever it is. The actuary has to understand the data, understand the analysis of the data and the solutions that are being presented, and then help the user make decisions about how they run their business or whatever it is. So that communication skill is going to be really important going forward. And that's written communication, but it's also verbal communication. And whether that's standing up in front of a lot of people or just in a one-to-one situation, developing verbal communication skills that enable you to, if you like, translate really complicated issues into something that can be understood by a layperson. That's going to be massively important. And it's not just actuaries who are facing this. My wife's a doctor, and the medical profession likewise, I think, are going to be in a very similar situation. Increasingly, AI is going to allow ever more sophisticated diagnostics, but you're still going to want a human person to be in between the computer-generated analysis and the patient. And for us too, as actuaries, you want a human person in between the AI analysis and the individual or the client. And that needs somebody that understands what's going on and can communicate it.
I love that. And I found that the more you can explain it to a child, the more you actually understand it. But there was a movie by Denzel Washington. It's called Philadelphia. It's very old movie. But yes. In it, he was a lawyer. He was a legal counsel. And he said, explain to me as if I'm a 6-year-old. And that has been something that I try to do for myself. Every time when I work with someone, is can I explain this to a child? And speaking to a non-technical audience, I think is so pivotal for actuaries who want to advance or want to try to go outside of their immediate practice area. Is you have to be able to explain something in plain English, like you said, to a lay person.
Yeah. Really important.
Let me switch gear to volunteering. What is the most memorable experience you ever had, Charles?
I think it's all of the firsts. So the first time I presented a sessional paper to the home of the Institute of Actuaries at Staple Inn in London to a packed audience was very exciting. The first time I attended an IFOA council meeting and thought, I'm in the council with all of these great decision makers of the profession. The first time I attended the IAA's pensions committee, and I suddenly had my eyes opened to all of these people who were approaching problems that I'd been dealing with for all of these years, but approaching them in a different way. And that was suddenly very exciting. And then the first time I represented the IAA at the OECD, we went into this massive room. It was a bit like the United Nations of pensions. and there were 50 or 60 delegates around this massive, great table area, and sharing what was going on in different countries about pensions, and then seeing the influence that the IAA can have on the global stage. So all of those firsts were probably the most memorable, but there's other fun incidents along the way.
Well, we don't have time for those, but I'd love to hear it some other time. If you are to convince, what will be two things, Charles, you distill to in terms of value of volunteering? This is for people who may not have volunteered in the past, that are on the fence. What are top two things you would convince them with?
So I think volunteering opens up your mind. Volunteering exposes you to different ways of doing things, of different ideas, of different cultures, and that's enhancing your own abilities, your own expertise. You learn so much when you go and talk and work with people who approach things from a very different perspective. So that is, I found it professionally incredibly helpful to have spent a lot of time understanding different perspectives on problems, and therefore understanding that answers are never simple. It's never black and white. There's never only one way of doing things. There are multiple ways of doing things. And then having my eyes opened to other ways that actuaries can add value. I've seen some amazing work that we did around pandemics and modelling of populations and so on. I've seen some really interesting stuff in the area of climate change. So there's an interest as well as a professional development of expertise. But then also there's the people side of it. I've gained so much. I've made so many friends. I've met so many wonderful actuaries that I've learned from and got to know and enjoyed their company. You become part of a bigger family. And so it's the opportunity to learn from each other, and therefore to be more effective. So all of those things for me make volunteering such an attractive proposition.
How long ago have you always wanted to become a priest, Charles?
Oh, so that's much more recent.
Tell me more.
It was never part of my plans originally. I'd always wanted to give something back. I'd always felt that as I approached retirement, I'd get a lot more involved in charities, which I do. I feel I've been very fortunate in life, and it's only right that I should seek to give something back. But church has always been very important, and faith has always been very important for me. But I've had the view that I'm a man of numbers who likes playing with computers, and ministry really wasn't something that I was likely to be cut out for.
But
about 5 or 6 years ago, I started having conversations and exploring it as a possibility, and I realised that actually the church welcomes, ministry welcomes people of as other professions do, of many, many different skill sets, and they demonstrated to me that actually, there isn't a tip. My perception of what a a priest was typically like was based just on the priests that I knew. And because I was very different to them, didn't mean that I couldn't equally be somebody that could be a priest that would have something to add. So I've been through a number of years now of theological training, and I've really enjoyed going back to school. I've really enjoyed going back to academic life and studying scripture. And now I'm really enjoying ministry and working with people. I never thought it would be something that would be something I would end up doing, but I'm looking forward to not retiring but changing direction and doing
congratulations.
something different.
It's last Saturday, right, that you are officially ordained.
Yes, I was ordained as a priest on Saturday. So this is only about day 5, and it still feels quite amazing and wonderful, and I'm looking forward to the future.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Charles. I really appreciate your time here with us today. Learned a ton, and thank you so much, and all the best with your retirement and church work in the future.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Be Brilliant with Jing Lang. We hope you found valuable insights and motivation to fuel your journey. Be sure to like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And share this with 3 people in your life endeavoring to achieve personal greatness. Remember, brilliance is within you, and every step you take brings you closer to your best self. Keep striving, keep shining, and until next time, stay brilliant.